A couple of days ago, I started my second ever playthrough of Pokemon Legends Arceus. Typically, with Pokemon games, I play through one of the games when it comes out, and then usually after I beat that game, sometime down the line, maybe a few months later, I buy the other version that I didn't buy, and then play through that one, and then I'll have two playthroughs of a generation, and then I'll be able to really formulate my opinion. And you know, that works. Personally, I think playing through a game twice is always good, specifically when it comes to Pokemon. You know, you may say, oh, it's the same game, but even then with Pokemon, you can play the same game multiple times and have different experiences. So in the second playthrough, I go through and I can use, you know, different Pokemon I didn't use the first time around, and then I have a little bit more knowledge of how to progress through the game, maybe things I would have done differently on my first playthrough, because now I know the game, a lot of the ins and the outs, right? And so one of the Pokemon games that I did not do this for, which, well, actually the only real recent modern Pokemon game I haven't done this for, is Pokemon Legends Arceus. When Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out, I mean, I played through Pokemon Scarlet when it came out, and then a couple months later I played through Pokemon Violet, right? And then the Scarlet DLC, I don't plan to play through the DLC one more time, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But then even BDSP, I played through Brilliant Diamond. I tried to play through Shining Pearl, and then I stopped. But anyway, with Pokemon Legends Arceus, because it was just a single game, really, if I want to replay through it, I either have to delete my data or create a new save file, but then I wouldn't have online access, because then I have to pay for like online again, which doesn't really matter because there isn't a lot of online aspects to Legends Arceus. But like, you know, normally to play through a game again, I just buy the other version and that's it. But with Legends Arceus, it was a little different, which is why I never really played through Legends Arceus again. But now, when the game is going to be 3 years old and we're getting ready to get another Pokemon Legends game next year, I decided, you know, I want to go back to it. And after playing this game for, I'm about, I'd say maybe 8 hours in, I gotta say, Pokemon Legends Arceus is just better than Scarlet and Violet. Like, it just is. Now, before you jump to the comments, or maybe click on this video or whatever, just hear me out. I have a couple of things, you know, that I'm not, you know, just getting ready to sit here and glaze Legends Arceus and shit on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. If you're looking for someone to shit on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, that's not what this video is. This is just me saying my opinion. Now, when it comes to Legends Arceus, of course, there's quite a bit of things that were cut out of the game. One, it has, I think, the smallest Pokédex ever in a Pokemon game. I think there is, well, I'm not exactly sure the number of Pokemon in it, but I know that it's a lot less than a normal Pokemon game, right? For the past few years, we're used to like about upwards of 600 Pokemon in a game, right? Even Pokemon Sword and Shield, which cut out you couldn't get every Pokemon, there was still like 600 some Pokemon you get in there. Here, you have substantially less Pokemon, right? And of course, you don't have things like online battling, you don't have abilities, you don't have items, you know, key things in a Pokemon game, right? Sure. But even with that, the experience you get in Legends Arceus is it is the most immersive Pokemon experience you will ever get in any Pokemon game, because it does things that are not in any other Pokemon game. There are more things that are in Legends Arceus that are not in other Pokemon games than any other Pokemon game. Because a lot of times Pokemon games, they introduce things and they come to the next game, right? So Pokemon Generation 2, you get abilities, right? I mean, not abilities, you get held items. And in Gen 3, you get abilities. And then in Gen 4 and Gen 5, you know, things normally get introduced and they stay, other than like gimmicks like Mega Evolution and things like that. I feel like this battle gimmick really was like the strong style versus, you know, agile style. That was really the real battle gimmick, right? Sure. But, you know, this game simplified it a lot, right? So you have the strong and agile style, sure, right? But then you don't have abilities, you don't have held items. But even then, the gameplay is still has depth to it, in that, like, agile style versus strong style. You know, the battling itself is a completely new system. Of course, it uses the Pokemon as a base, but then you have things like drowsiness, which instead of just completely incapacitating Pokemon, the other Pokemon can still move. It's just there's a chance they can't move. And then, you know, things like that. And I believe it lowers their reaction time. There's a lot of details in this game. You have order of ways one Pokemon's gonna act or not, depending on, you know, how fast Pokemon is. Maybe they can move twice, right? It's crazy. And you know, this thing, it feels like you're in the Pokemon anime more than any other game, because not only are battles more dynamic, literally, because you can move twice, you can use moves in different ways. Pokemon can just kill you. And I mean, how many times in the anime you see a person you see Ash get shocked by Pikachu? Here you can actually get shocked by a freaking Pikachu, right? And so when the immersion of the game is just different. It's its own breed, right? It's like, it's the most different Pokemon game ever. You can, instead of battling a Pokemon, just throw a Pokeball at it. Some Pokemon are friendly. You could just walk up to it and like, hey, you want to be my friend? I walked up to Shellos like an hour into the game, and I'm like, I'm going to throw a Pokeball at you. And I threw it. It was just looking at me. It's like, hi, I'm Shellos. I throw it at it, and the Shellos just stays in the ball. Like, there's different Pokemon with different personalities, and that's just like crazy. In Scarlet and Violet, of course, you have Pokemon that can be aggressive, but then they'll run up to you, and then it starts a Pokemon battle. Here, Pokemon can shoot attacks at you. Sometimes, Pokemon, when you enter a battle with them, if they're a timid Pokemon, they can just flee. You know, with roaming Pokemon, in Pokemon, no other Pokemon game really has fleeing Pokemon other than, like, roaming legendaries, right? Which, I guess it makes legendaries harder to catch, but at the same time, when you think about Pokemon like Starly, it's a Pokemon that gets intimidated easily. It's a little bird, right? It's like you would expect that Pokemon to be more timid, right? Some Pokemon move slower than others. It's like there's a lot more personality to the Pokemon in these games than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And I think that's just because in Scarlet and Violet, they focused on quantity of Pokemon over quality. And going to Legends Arceus, I think that is the main reason why this game is so different and so good, is because it's a lot more quality over quantity. You know, the big thing about Scarlet and Violet's DLC wasn't necessarily, you know, the story being quality. Sure, there was cool things about Terapagos, but really the story of Scarlet and Violet's DLC was not that crazy. Be real with yourself. Was it cool? Sure. But at the same time, in Scarlet and Violet's DLC, we didn't hear nothing about Walking Wake and Iron Leaves. Those are staying as events. The only two Pokemon we got were the legendary Entei, or the paradox forms of Entei and Raikou, and then Terrakion and Cobalion. But even then, they were just there. There was no explanation as to why these guys were there. We were thinking that we're going to get some more lore about these guys, but we just did not. If any, and the biggest thing about Scarlet and Violet's DLC that was being advertised was the Pokemon that you were getting back, right? So it's a huge thing that, oh, we're returning Pokemon. And that's the thing about these DLCs. They advertise, you know, here's a story, but returning Pokemon. That's really been the biggest part about Sword and Shield's DLC and Scarlet and Violet's DLC, is the Pokemon that they are available. Literally, when in the Pokemon World Championships of 2023, the thing that they revealed about the Indigo Disc was that all the starter Pokemon are coming back. Like, they didn't really show anything about the story. They showed about the Pokemon, which, of course, because it's competitive, the World Championships is competitive. They're going to focus on, like, you know, the competitive aspect, which is Pokemon. But even then, name the biggest part about the DLC and the biggest DLCs of the past few years, and they all correlate around new Pokemon or old Pokemon coming back, which is like, means effectively, you know, the game isn't going to inherently be, it's not going to drastically increase the quality of the game. Whereas in Pokemon Legends Arceus, right, instead of, focusing on how much Pokemon we could fit into this game, they took the Pokemon they had and really gave more personality. Every Pokemon has a smaller Pokédex. Pokemon Legends Arceus has a smaller Pokédex, but every Pokemon has a lot more personality. Bidoof, one of the first Pokemon you encounter, Shinx, Starly, those three most basic Pokemon have more personality here than all of the Pokemon in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. When you see an Abra in Pokemon Legends Arceus, it will physically teleport away. Mr. Mime, I forgot about this, but Mr. Mime will legit create barriers stopping you from throwing Pokeballs or getting into a battle with it. So a lot of the lower Burmy, you can only find Burmy by getting into trees, right? A lot of the lore and the things we know about Pokemon we see in this game because there's a lot more care. Quality over quantity, right? Quality over the quantity of features. There isn't as many features. You don't have abilities. You don't have all that. But they focused on the basics and made it even more quality. They took the basics of Pokemon, increased the quality, and the product substantially, like, you can tell the difference of the product quality because of how much time was focused into just the quality of the game rather than the quantity, right? BDSP has more Pokemon in it technically than Legends Arceus, but if you want to compare the quality versus quantity there, literally, Legends Arceus I think is the only Pokemon game ever that doesn't have Charizard in it, right? Charizard did not play a role in this game. And, a lot of times it's like, okay, we have to include this, this, and this because of quantity, right? Whereas Legends Arceus, instead of focusing on that, they really focused on quality. And this goes to the story. It is the most dark Pokemon game we've ever had because they literally use the word die in like the first 10 minutes. They talk about, Pokemon are dangerous creatures. This is before Pokemon and humans were buddy-buddy. And I get that's maybe why now in recent Pokemon games you can argue that, okay, well, Pokemon are a lot more domesticated and things like that. Sure. But Pokemon still are supposed to be living creatures. In Scarlet and Violet, they do not feel like living creatures. You're walking around the world and you'll just see Pokemon pop in and out, in and out. Sure, random Pokemon there, random Pokemon there. It's not like immersed, right? Of course, like you could see, okay, this Pokemon is probably going to be like, it's like, you get the basics, right? Okay, so ice Pokemon are going to be in Ice Mountain, water Pokemon are going to be in like the river, right? But it's not like they do anything. They just stand there. Maybe some will chase you. But the world of Scarlet and Violet feels more empty. And so, and sure, Legends Arceus does have times where the world is just empty. There are times where Legends Arceus is not a perfect game. I will say that. Sure, you can talk about, I mean, it has its flaws. But also, you got to think in mind, there were not nearly as many glitches in Legends Arceus as Scarlet and Violet. The performance in Legends Arceus, sure, was shaky, but it was not unplayable like Scarlet and Violet. You didn't have that many game-breaking things in Pokemon Legends Arceus compared to Scarlet and Violet, which is like quality versus quantity, right? This game had a lot more care into it, right? You could just tell, right? And, it's just, playing through this game again really just made me think about the potential that Pokemon has, right? Because if this was the basis for Scarlet and Violet, I think Scarlet and Violet could have been a lot better. Just being able to the immersion, where like, you can battle a Pokemon if you want, but also you can just throw a Pokeball from whatever distance, right? I mean, you're building literally a Pokemon world, right? Which I guess in Scarlet and Violet, technically Pokemon world is established, but even then the world just feels hollow. It feels dead. When you get through the first hour of the game, the world opens up to where you can do anything, right? But really it's a set order because levels don't scale, right? So obviously if you go try to tackle Grusha, you're not going to be able to beat her as your first gym leader. I mean, beat him as your first gym leader because he's going to have level 40 and 50 Pokemon, right? That's not going to be a best idea. But here, even though that's how Pokemon tackle the open world, right? But even then, it just felt dead. You just tasks. Here, there's so much to do. There are side quests. Sure, the world is a lot more limited, but the world feels like there's a lot more care put into it. Pokemon have a lot more, like, personality, right? And you have, like, you can craft your own items, you can craft your own Pokeballs, you can craft, like, there's a lot more things to just inherently do other than catch, battle, trade. Of course, catch, battle, trade, those are the important aspects, right? But look at the way they're handled in Legends Arceus. Sure, you can't just battle your friend, right? But at the same time, when you just look at the immersion of the Pokemon game, most people that play Pokemon aren't into the competitive scene. I love competitive Pokemon, but most Pokemon players play it for the main game, and that's it. And then when you think about the main game, Scarlet and Violet really is just built for the competitive scene, which I guess is fine. Like, we're now starting to get into the point where Pokemon games, instead of being, the, like, focus on everything, it feels like, we're going to have the main game that's going to be for battling for the next couple of years, and then we're going to have the actual, immersive game, which is, I think, going to be Legends. So, Generation 10 is going to be the next real competitive thing, right? Legends Arceus is going to be the more immersive Pokemon experience, which I think is, I guess, okay. I mean, I would rather have an immersive experience Pokemon game on its own and then another game focused on battling. It'd be nice to have those both together in one, but I guess Pokemon can't do that right now, which, I mean, it's experimentation. We don't know what Gen 10 is going to be. We don't even know what Legends Legends ZA is going to be like. But yeah, I think that, and also I will say, I played Scarlet and Violet multiple times since Legends Arceus came out, and I've been playing Pokemon Scarlet a lot more than Legends Arceus just because there is, I guess, more content to it. Legends Arceus really didn't get that many updates, which I think is such a shame because I feel like that game easily could have gotten more DLC. It had like one update, Pokemon Legends Arceus Daybreak, and it seemed like they were going to do more, but then they must have just scrapped it because Scarlet and Violet was around the corner and they didn't want to distract from it. But really, I just think, if you haven't played Legends Arceus in a minute, go back and play it. And I really think, I forgot a lot about this game, and it's like there's so much in it, and literally I'm 8 hours in, but I only have like 2 of the Galaxy Stars. I only just beat Cleavor. Like, once you play through the game again, when I first played through the game, I wanted to just get through it. But now, going through the game again, knowing that catching Pokemon is a lot bigger thing, I try and start catching more Pokemon. And, it's a challenge. It's fun to try and catch Pokemon that are way over leveled at the beginning of the game. Like, I got a level 32 Gashadon really early into the game. And, I mean, of course it didn't listen to me. But it's just the fact that, there was a lot to do. And, shiny Pokemon. I got a shiny Abra, and I was scared as hell because I know, oh my god, it's not a guarantee. In Scarlet and Violet, you see a shiny, you save in front of it. I mean, you can't save in front of a shiny here too, but in Scarlet and Violet, it's like you're pretty much guaranteed the shiny once you find it. Here, it was a shiny freaking Abra. That was my first shiny I found. I'm like, shit, Abra can freaking disappear. I don't want that to happen. So I was trying to be careful. And it was a lot more, like, I felt a lot more intense than, like, in Scarlet and Violet. I'm just walking around like, oh, it's a shiny. Here, it's like you hear the shiny sound, and then, even then, when you hear the shiny sound, you don't exactly know what the shiny is. You gotta look around, right? And I just think that's dope. It's like, I mean, that's another way. Handles shiny Pokemon. Legends Arceus handles shiny Pokemon better than Scarlet and Violet. I think it's just because, it cut out a lot, but it made the aspects that it did keep, they tuned them up a lot more, right? You can have your own battle style, right? And there's a lot more to it, I mean, like, it's a lot more like quality, I guess, because technically, things were cut, but it has its own style. So, at the end of the day, Legends Arceus is overall a better game than Scarlet and Violet. I'm not gonna say, like I said, I'm not gonna just. This video isn't meant to dog on Scarlet and Violet. It's just to really remind people. Because I'm thinking, obviously, Legends Arceus had its time. But I really think, as we getting ready to get into Legends ZA hype season, I highly recommend, if you haven't played Legends Arceus in a minute, go back and play through it. Start a fresh save. Create a new Switch account. Just on your little Switch. Make a new profile. Play through that game again. And I guarantee you will be reminded about it. Will feel so refreshing because Scarlet and Violet felt so automatic and things. Here it's so refreshing. It is so refreshing. It feels so good. And it's like it really can remind you the potential that Pokemon has, because this game felt like it took advantage of Pokemon's potential more than any other Pokemon game. Like it felt it's the most immersive Pokemon game ever. And it has its flaws, but really, I just think, it speaks for itself. As like, if I had to replay a Pokemon game right now, obviously I like Black 2 and White 2 and Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Those are my top favorite games. But really, in terms of like the game that immerses you the most in Pokemon, I'd say this is probably going to be the best modern Pokemon game, period. I mean, like, there's no other game that does the things that it does. And so, I'm going to wrap this video up here because I could keep on ranting, but I just really think, moral of the story, what I'm just trying to say, I think that if you think that, if you don't believe me, that's fine. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but I want you to take away, I want you to have from this video is, I want you to just play Legends Arceus, replay it, start a new save, start playing through it again, and then think about really how much, like, just think about like all the stuff you see in that first beginning part of the game, and just think about, imagine if that was like fully realized in like an even bigger Pokemon game. Think about, play through an hour, start a new save on Scarlet or Violet, and start a new save on Legends Arceus. Play through the first hour of both and tell me which one was the better experience. Let it speak for itself. It's boy T-Flame, T4Go, T, get all that, can't get no more. Check out my links down below, and I'm hyped for Legends ZA. See y'all in the next video. Peace.